Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mac and D. As always, I'm joined by James Dumpster Diving. How you doing, James?
I'm diving them dumpsters, dude. I was thinking maybe you're gonna say I have a dump truck, and I was getting excited. Then you really just dropped the elbow on me. But I see you're in a new locale. Can you please describe where you are recording from?
I'm in Louisville right now. Winners of the Boca Raton Baked Beans Bowl beat Toledo earlier this bowl season. I placed a bet on them actually to cover, and they had a 6.5 point spread. And I actually lost my FanDuel bonus bet because they've been hitting
Mm,
me with so many ads lately, if you can believe it. But I'm in Louisville. How's your New Year's going?
um, it's fine. I'm just kind of like cleaning the house. I'm a pretty lame New Year's Eve person, as you and probably any fan of the pod knows. I am not a drinker. I'm not a partier, and I don't like loud environments. This is my personal 9/11 of a holiday.
Yeah, not exactly your speed by any means. And yeah, I mean, New Year's Eve in a lot of ways has turned into a college football night in a lot of ways for me personally. So we'll be really looking forward to that Ohio State Miami game tonight. A lot of NFL
Mhm.
prospects in that game. That's going to be really exciting. Congratulations to Illinois, by the way, on their big bowl victory in the Music City Bowl.
Dude, you know what's incredible is fan of the pod and not Tennessee fan, Lucy Rice messaged me um some point yesterday, basic or on Monday, was just kind of saying, "Oh, by the way, Illinois football, be prepared to lose." So I did one hell of a victory lap when the scoreboard hit zero and we were up by two, and I was just like, "Oh, I heard maybe we actually won the game, Lucy. Did I mistake it or what happened there?"
Yeah, it's been a real rough go for SEC fans, Lucy being one of them. Shout out Lucy. We love Lucy on the pod. The SEC's 2-5 in bowl season, with one of those two wins being against itself. Definitely not a good look for the SEC. And I'm watching Vanderbilt play Iowa right now out of the corner of my eye, and they're losing to Iowa right now. So very funny. It would be very funny if they continue their bowl losing streak. We now have 8-5 Mizzou and 8-5 Tennessee, both teams not having a single win over an above 500 team this season, despite being ranked for a majority of this season. Gotta
Hey,
love
you
that
know it's
differential.
crazy. Illinois did have multiple wins over better than 500 teams, but we get dunked on for no reason.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy how that works out. There's a lot of people comparing Minnesota over the last 4 or 5 years to both Mizzou and Tennessee. Minnesota objectively has a better profile in terms of everything. Despite all that, they've only been ranked for one singular week in the AP poll over the last 4 years.
The, the, the
Gotta love
only
that.
real difference, right? Like the easy gotcha is Tennessee did make the playoffs where Mizzou or where Minnesota did not.
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, they got absolutely dunked on, maybe 40-point loss to Ohio State, where it's just like Minnesota gets to play them all the time, and that never happens. So, it just means more here in the Big Ten.
But they won on paper, James. Tennessee, prior to the game, I kept hearing, oh, Tennessee's going to win by like 20,
Well,
30.
yeah, and obviously, all of their pro caliber players weren't even playing the game. So, like, obviously, that's what did it. And let's just spin the wheel of excuses for the SEC on all the things that their fans like to say that, now that they have to play real teams, it just doesn't work out in their favor.
That was Ohio State's Super Bowl. They just cared
Mm-hmm.
way too much.
Mm-hmm.
Caring is just not cool in 2025. You've got to be nonchalant. That's really important.
Speaking of
James,
nonchalant, what's on your shirt right now, sir?
oh, I got the Tampa Bay Rays alternate logo. My brother got it for me for Christmas. Shout out Drew, friend of the pod.
Mm-hmm.
It is their alternate logo of a manta ray riding a skateboard, which is just fantastic.
Yes.
I really love the shirt, but honestly, so it's from Fanatics, right? Is like genuinely the thinnest shirt I've ever worn in my entire life. I'm wearing a turtleneck tonight for
Mm-hmm.
New Year's Eve, so it felt like a good undershirt. But I'm like, I cannot believe how like much this feels like it's just gonna rip. I'm not a strong guy, you know this. I feel like I'm literally just gonna Hulk out of this thing.
Yeah, the Fanatics exclusive deal through various sports orgs is not ideal.
It's genuinely one of the worst things that's hit the sports industry over the last while. And there's been a lot of bad things that have happened over the last few years, so very, very frustrating. James, we haven't recorded in a couple weeks. We
Mhm.
have a lot to hit. I'm kind of thinking we start with our scars and bars, and then we just kind of go division by division on what's going on because there's been a lot of action that's been happening leading up into the NFL playoffs, which
Mhm.
starts in just over a week. Can you believe that? Insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think for starters, we do a quick apology. We're not professional podcasters, so holidays hit us pretty hard. Let's hit the scars pretty quick, just because I want to ignore all of the Patriots related scars, and let's go to bars.
Yeah, no, for sure. So the weirdest one this week has been the Stephon Diggs and Christian Barmore legal trouble. I think
Mhm.
we gotta just kind of wait to see what happens. It's possible they get no suspension. It's possible they're never playing another down in a Patriots uniform. So that's incredibly
Yeah.
strange. You watched some of this go down live. Jordan Love got a
Mhm.
concussion. Malik Willis just kind of broke his entire body. The Packers are now into their third string quarterback potentially. Just literally today brought in Desmond Ritter off of the practice squad. What was that Ravens Packers game like, James?
Yeah, so the thing is, right, Malik really brings the juice. There's going to be a lot of fans clamoring to trade Love and re-sign Malik, which is wild to think about. I don't know if it's the right move, but the noise has already started. Malik had, I think, two incompletions on Saturday night. It was a very fun game. And honestly, although the Ravens were just at will running 10 yards per clip, the stadium didn't get out of the game until Malik went out, right? And we're all like, who's third stringer? And I saw Clayton Tune warming up, and I was talking to some Packers fans around me. I was like, guys, you're effed. Like, I'm sorry, but the tune ain't it, right? There's no shot of winning this game. We could have left at that moment. We waited until the 2 minute warning. Um, to your point, if you're relying on Desmond Mitter, at least they don't need this one for the playoffs. Luckily, I think you just let everyone get healthy. But yeah, the air let out of that stadium as you see Clayton Tune taking warm up snaps on the sideline was just like, let's just get to the damn parking lot at this point.
Yeah, I think everybody knew the Clayton Tune experience wasn't going to work out whenever the hapless Arizona Cardinals were about to trot him out of the regular season, and then they decided to start Colt McCoy over him because Tune was so bad during preseason, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll run out Colt McCoy," and then they ended up cutting him just a month later. So Tune was not it, and he showed it immediately with that interception. How was Tad doing? Did he have a good time in Green Bay still?
Honestly, I think he still had a good time. I mean, anytime going to Lambeau is very cool, right? It's a great experience. That's the first time he's actually seen them lose in Lambeau, and he's been to five or so games. Like he's been pretty lucky as a Packer fan when it comes to watching big time games. So you have to pay your dues at some point.
Yeah, definitely broke the streak a little bit. But yeah, it's also like, hey, the Ravens were an absolute desperate team after that big loss that they had against the New England Patriots. You know, the Zay Flowers fumble issues continue. The Derrick Henry fumble issues continue. Those are going to be big backbreakers and going to be points of emphasis for them going forward. And meanwhile, the Packers don't need to win
Yep,
because you know what? They already have the 7th seed locked up. They don't even care anymore.
that's
So
their
it's like,
thing.
just get healthy, you know? The big takeaway that I have with the Packers is during that game that they had against the Ravens, it felt like the stretcher came out like 9 times, 8 or 9 times throughout this
Mhm.
the entirety of the game. They just need to get healthy, man. Like if they can get Jordan Love back, they can get some of those key defenders back. It could be a completely different thing going on. And like you said about Malik Willis, there were so many people on Twitter that were like, "Hey, just off this game alone." Malik Willis might just go get a $20 million per year bag just from another team potentially. That one ball that he
My
had down the sideline to Dubs was absolutely
Yeah.
insane.
My initial takeaway was this guy just earned himself $50 million over the last 2 weeks, right? He's easily going to get the Justin Fields contract, if not better, because he's younger. And I think as a passer is clearly better than Fields. Um, Man, he was evading sacks. He was very good in the pocket. And the big thing too, he's not that traditional. Like what LaFleur has helped him, build, comparing him to Tennessee is when he's scrambling, his eyes are up. Like he had a huge pass to Christian Watson for I think 20 yards when, any traditional scramblers trying to get that with their feet. Um, there was just multiple passes. Like he breaks four tackles and instead of just hitting panic mode, he looks right back up and then drops it, some 20-yard pass on the dot. So a lot of really positive things. I could see the Colts taking their shot with him with, not knowing the Daniel Jones injury. The Jets always kind of laughably on that carousel. The Dolphins would be really exciting with Malik. Like there's a lot of options, a lot of quarterback needy teams that I think are easily going to say, hey, we're drafting someone, but we need a little bit of something else there with it. And he easily gets a $50 million contract.
Yeah, for sure. Is the biggest cheat code nowadays just to get out of Tennessee? Malik Willis left the Titans, Mike Vrabel left the Titans, Harold Landry left the Titans, and they all immediately got better, or at least had more impact when it comes to winning. Very, very sad to watch all that.
Dude, I can't wait for the Packers to trade a seventh for Will Levis and just kind of bring him up in the system, and then 3 years later win some games with him as a backup.
He very much so feels that like Matt Hasselbeck potential career arc, which should be very interesting. You brought the
It's
Colts,
yeah.
Philip Rivers' era is 100% over in Indy. He's not going to be starting week 18. Instead, we're getting Riley Leonard. Definitely gave a good effort. It honestly made for some very fun late season theatrics. I really enjoyed the dramatics of, oh, what's Philip Rivers going to do? Is he going to be able to drag them up into getting a couple of wins? Unfortunately, came up a little bit short against the 49ers and again this past week. Very, very tough, but honestly, kind of upset of the century. I don't really even think it was Philip Rivers' fault. I feel like the
No, that's
rest of the coach
honestly
let him
my
down.
biggest takeaway was Rivers was not the reason they lost those games, right? And they played tough teams. Like we knew it was going to be an uphill battle. The Colts were hanging 30 points on people. Their defense was just Swiss cheese.
Yeah. I feel like the Colts in a lot of ways are just really hurting from not having Sauce Gardner, which, they gave up two first round picks for, and then just having some other injuries within that secondary. Really, really ended up being the thing that killed them. It felt like every single time they got a little bit of momentum going, it wasn't a turnover necessarily. It wasn't really anything that the offense was necessarily doing. It was the other portions of the game. Amir Abdullah had a critical fumble, for example, that really hurt them. Philip Rivers, of course, he did have some moments, right? Like there was this one interception this past week where he's like, oh my gosh, like I don't even think full arm strength Philip Rivers could have gotten that ball into a window and it turned into an interception. But yeah, they lost to San Francisco and they lost to the Jags this past week,
Hmm.
which were just absolute backbreakers.
Let's do
Um,
quick hits here, right? That Judkins injury, brutal. I hope he is back at some point next year. He might have a full year off just recovering. I mean, that was like the Frank Gore, ACL shred where they're like, we're not showing this on TV. Gets pulled off by the stretcher. And that DK suspension, punching a Lions fan, right?
yeah,
He that might be the reason that the Steelers don't make the playoffs because they
it
dropped
genuinely.
the ball against the Browns. That was embarrassing. They were more worried about Myles Garrett than they were about winning the game. And now they've got a really hot Ravens team that feels pretty confident going into this week.
Yeah, we don't really have much in terms of actual drama going into week 18, which is love the expanded schedule, I guess. That's just kind of what ends up happening. We just have two really sad sack divisional races. We got the AFC North and then the NFC South, and those are like the big things that we still have that really need to be fleshed out over this last week. And yeah, and the Steelers dropping the game against the Browns is probably the worst loss any team has taken this entire season. And I'm not making excuses for the Lions. We're going to talk about them ad nauseum here in a minute. But like, I don't think the Steelers beat the Lions if it isn't for DK Metcalf. His ability to break tackles, ability to extend plays was crucial for them in that second half of the game. And yeah, he punched a fan in the middle of the game, which is just bizarre. You never see that kind of stuff. We don't really know what happened or what was said. That's not really for us to speculate. It does not seem like that the fan was necessarily innocent by any means, despite what he says. But yeah, it's very, very brutal. And, now they're going to be very thin at receiver, especially, with George Pickens no longer there. Calvin Austin kind of assumes that wide receiver one role, and that's going to be crucial against a very, very vulnerable secondary in Baltimore. That could have been the thing that swings the games in a lot of ways.
Well, and again, I mean, like you're saying, like guys, the Browns is your layup, right? They scored 10 points on you. You can't get 10 points on the freaking Cleveland Browns,
Yeah,
right? Like wow, you guys deserve no one from the AFC North deserves to be in the playoffs this year, and no one from the NFC South deserves to be in the playoffs this year, but one of them will get a home game.
yes, which is bizarre. And we talked about Philip Rivers having a brutal interception. That Shedeur Sanders interception that he had, that he just kind of floated a duck up on, I think it's third or fourth down.
Well, yeah, to like Jerry Judy, yeah, your prime high point receiver Jerry Judy, who didn't even properly play D back on that play.
Yeah, Judy literally like he was like waving for the ball and everything, and it's like if he's waving for the ball, that's
If you
might
wait for
be a
the
sign.
ball, you're
Don't.
not getting the ball. I think it was Brady went to like rookie Edelman. And pardon the viewers, I know this is a swear word, but it's a direct quote where he's just like, Julian, I fucking see you. Quit waving. So if you have to wave, you're
Exactly.
not open.
Just giving it away. And
Yeah.
Judy, mind you, was drafted as wide receiver 38 going into the season, finished as wide receiver 68 whenever it's all said and done when it
Needs
comes to
Winston.
fantasy, which we'll get into later in the
Yeah.
pod as well. Got a couple bars for you, James, that I thought were awesome. Your boy Johnny or Jerzon Newton from Illinois, he had 3 sacks against the Dallas Cowboys a couple of weeks ago. He had the quote of, "Whenever I catch fire, it's hard to cool me off." And I thought that was awesome coming from the D tackle. And then Jalen Petre. safety for the Houston Texans, had an awesome quote this past week. He said, "Greatest. The Texans defense is maybe second." And I thought those were
Yep.
freaking sick.
Dude, have we
James,
seen a
AFC
new
East, are
wave
we
of
starting like this weekend?
Christianity in the NFL?
Dude, it might be. It might be coming that way. Fernando Mendoza, he might help usher that in. I could
Mhm.
see in a lot of ways. AFC East, though, James, clinched the division. The Patriots did. Are we partying like it's 2010?
I think so. And honestly, 2010, as we were saying earlier, right? Kind of a bigger arrest happened, very, very prime TV. If we get two arrests this year, I believe that ushers in 20 years of dominance, not just 10. So, fingers crossed we get our guys back. But if not, things could be looking up.
Yes.
The big thing really is right. The Bills, I liked going for two. I liked just taking your chances. It just didn't work out as one of the worst plays of Josh Allen's career. He's just going to have to shake that one off. You can maybe scratch it and say, hey, the Eagles haven't moved the ball in like two real world hours. Like, why are you not just going for overtime? But they're on their third string kickers. Like, I get what was going on there. And I like just trying to live with the momentum. The Dolphins, again, made a huge push to just be mediocre. That you can tell the pieces are still there. They're kind of a scary offensive team. Like this is not one we should sleep on as the Patriots. I think we can get a lot of rushing yards. But A Chain with nothing to lose could easily hang 250 just off of little flares out of the backfield. The Jets, woof. This team cannot force turnovers, which is insane when you have a defensive coach. Like we expected their
Yeah.
offense to be bad. This defense is horrendous.
Yeah, and, the Jets just got absolutely obliterated this past week
Belt to
against the
ass.
Patriots. I think you can victory lap a little bit here. That was one of the best quarterback performances we have ever seen. And it was basically just over the course of a half. Drake May just absolutely obliterating. He only had two incompletions the entire game, five
The,
touchdowns.
the only better performance was Brady's like 7 touchdowns in the first half against the Titans, or however that worked out. But this was a pretty close second, right? I mean, you have to do that to a bad team, but it's good signs, right? When you're the whole team is humming, they're not taking these games for granted. And yeah, Drake had two incompletions. One of them hit Kyle Williams in the chest. So I just pretty good performance out of Drake May. The only way it could have been better is if his average completion went for 12 and a half yards. It was just a little under, so he could not have the perfect QBR on the day.
So close though. I mean, you get mad at Kyle Williams, but then the week before against the Ravens, he has an
Yeah,
awesome game. He's
right.
absolutely gelling. So it's like you take those lumps a little bit as a rookie.
Hmm.
And like you mentioned, like with the Jets, it's like you would expect the defense to be awesome. You knew the offense was going to be really bad, right? You're trying out Brady Cook, Mizzou legend at quarterback. Brees Hall obviously had a awesome game where he got saved by a bit of a
So he
garbage
had
time
a pretty bad game and an awesome 80-yard touchdown run.
He was awful 2 weeks ago whenever I needed him in the fantasy championship or
Mhm.
semifinals, excuse me. But it is what it is. He has an awesome game championship weekend whenever I'm not in the championship. And Garrett Wilson being out obviously hurts a lot of things. But they've been saying Aaron Glenn, he's going to be safe. He's going to be safe. They've been saying that a lot about Mike McDaniel and Kevin Stefanski. Feels like a lot of these guys come Black Monday, which is just over a week away. They really, really need to be worrying out for themselves. I also think Jonathan Gannon, who apparently the Cardinals came out with a bit of vote of confidence today. I'm like, I'm not sure I feel great about that role either. Like he really shit the bed throughout this season, so we could see a change happening in
Yeah, and
Arizona.
I think what we have to look at is maybe the Dan Campbell um, template versus like the Mike Vrabel template, right? So Dan Campbell came into a pretty bad roster, an org that just never really wins and needed a true overhaul of culture. Got to get some cancerous dudes out of there, etc. Right? You give him a little bit of a longer leash because you've been on that wheel of mediocrity as the Lions. Okay. Well, we go Gerard Mayo after one season, no sign of life from the team. Like every indication is we have to get this guy out of here. We can't ruin this kind of promising rookie quarterback and some of these younger studs on defense. You bring in Vrabel and yet immediately have that turn. I think that's kind of the template most people have to go off of is like we can't keep Aaron Glennon or let me get it wrong, Mike Glennon, Aaron Glenn.
Aaron Glenn, Aaron
There we go.
Glenn.
Okay, we can't keep these guys around just because well maybe it could work out. We're being too hasty. It's like Aaron Glenn clearly doesn't have it as a head coach. That defense never showed any kind of spark. That team never showed any kind of just juice, right? He had the weird kind of like, oh, I'm going to keep the quarterback secret because it's an advantage. And it's like you have two very mid quarterbacks. There's no advantage. Like you're just showing you have no confidence in either of them. He doesn't handle the media well, which is not good in New York, right? And then in Arizona, like it's just been 3 years of the 2 years of blood. Like you're getting a new quarterback, you're shipping Kyler out of town. Like this is a full rebuild. It's just a bad situation. You don't do that with the current coaching staff.
Yeah. Feels like the Jets are just like a 1 year ahead of where the Cardinals are at right now, right? Where the Jets kind of had to sell low on a lot of their veteran players that are bona fide superstars. Quentin Williams gets shipped out for not a huge package. The Sauce Gardner deal was pretty large, but also, another guy that ended up getting traded away, maybe not at the peak of his value. Feels like Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be in that realm here in a little bit, as well as Kyler Murray. Marvin Harrison Jr. not going to be playing in week 18, finished the season with less than 600 receiving yards, which is not the kind of thing that they were projecting him to be at coming out of Ohio State. So going to be some tough answers coming ahead in Arizona. Looking at the AFC North, we kind of talked about this ad nauseum already. Steelers, Ravens for all the marbles. Kind of sad that the Steelers even got to this point. They looked like after the big Lions win that they were going to be just, waltzing into the playoffs. And now they really, really have to get things going come this week 18 game against the Ravens. The offense looked pitiful. And, Kenny Gainwell had an awesome game against the Lions, didn't really get a lot going this past week against the Browns. And I mean, the Ravens offense is also incredibly hot and cold, but it's just going to be a matter of, hey, is Lamar Jackson going to be healthy? Is that back going to be healthy enough in order to play? Or is Tyler Huntley going to have to do what he has to do? And, he looked pretty good against the Packers, realistically.
I think the big question from the AFC North, right, is one, no one that comes out of this is really a contender, right? They're just going to get absolutely dog walked by the Bills, probably as kind of a 5-4 matchup. Realistically, that feels like what happens. The thing is, honestly, this might be saving Zach Taylor's job because the Bengals are literally one Joe Burrow injury away from being a 9-win team, probably a 10-win team, and just saying, "Cool, we won the division," right? Like I think you can make that argument if you're Zach Taylor and kind of save your skin. And he's another guy that really, I'd rather have Mike McDaniel as my head coach, I think, or Stefanski. Like I just don't believe in what Taylor is doing anymore, and I just don't believe in that org outside of like Burrow and Chase.
Yeah, I think that him with in tandem with a bad front office, it's just not working in Cincinnati. I'd be surprised if he survives Black Monday, just from an outside perspective. But crazier things have happened, and maybe just with the Bengals being so cheap, they may not want to have to buy him out, for example. Browns, I think the biggest question that they still have at the bottom of this division, it's like, hey, what are your long-term answers in your backfield? Do you run it back with Dylan Sampson and Quinshon Judkins? What are their health going to look like going into year two? And is Shadur Sanders the answer, or do you go round one quarterback once again? That obviously has not worked for the Browns in the past, but you did spend some pretty premium draft capital on getting Shadur in the fifth round and Dylan Gabriel in the third round. I don't think they have a lot of clarity there, and they still have a long way to go in order to figure that out, in my mind. So it's going to be an interesting offseason for the AFC North. AFC South ended up being way better than I think a lot of people anticipated. And it starts with the Jaguars. Liam Cohen has to be coach of the year, right?
Yeah, and I think he definitely gets it based off of where they were last year to this year. It's really one hell of a competition between him, Vrabel, and who's the other one I mean, I guess Sean Payton,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you're talking to teams that didn't make the playoffs last year that are all of a sudden dominating their division, or a team that barely made the playoffs and now is the one seed. This is going to be the closest race ever for for coach of the year. Because usually it's a runaway, like very obvious, right? Team's 14-2, boom, coach of the year. Team went from no wins to making the playoffs, boom, coach of the year. It's going to be close. I think Cohen makes sense because he's already like a top 5 of all time Jags coach, which is hilarious. But I think the real story here is the Texans starting cold as cold can be. And now they're probably the team you unequivocally do not want to face in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I was talking with our friend Bob this past week, and it's like it feels like everything's just a tale of two seasons. That's going to be kind of I think of a 2025 season. What happened? You either started hot and got real cold later in the year, or you started really cold and got smoking hot towards the end of the year. And the Texans were one of those teams that started really, really cold. They were 0-3 to begin the season. Sky was falling, obviously a tough schedule. The offensive line looked awful. And then slowly but surely, they just kind of built it back up, got the offensive line to league average, got CJ Stroud running well. They got Woody Marks and Nick Chubb kind of running that offense. And then, like, all of a sudden, that defense got super mega hot, and here they are at 11-5 and second in the division. Colts were the opposite end of that, right? Starting 7-1 and then finishing 1-7. So of course have week 18 to go. Lost to the Jaguars, which was kind of like their last gasp kind of game. And then the Texans win against the Chargers this past week. Really, ultimately, was the thing that knocked them out of the playoffs mathematically. I don't even think you get mad at this Colts season, though. You just kind of have to look at it and be like, damn, you really gave it your best effort. JT was running wild for the first half of the season, kind of cooled off towards the end of the year. I think there's some things that you can feel good about the Colts season, though, where it's like Michael Pittman, he ended up really resurging as a wide receiver one once again. Alec Pierce is really good as a wide receiver, too. If you can sign him back, he's going to be going for a lot of money this offseason. You feel pretty good about him. And you kind of did all of this on defense, even without Sauce Gardner for a big chunk of the season, obviously, between injury and trade. And then also DeForest Buckner kind of had some old man neck injuries, too. So I feel like the Colts, you can feel pretty good about everything. And then Titans, too, to a degree, at the bottom of the division. Cam Ward, the last couple of weeks against the Chiefs, and then this past weekend where he was kind of leading that comeback against the Saints. He had some zip, man. He was looking actually pretty solid for a team that really didn't have a lot of hope going. Cam Ward, you really feel good about going into 2026.
Yeah, I feel if I'm a Titans fan, I think I actually feel better than being a Colts fan. The Colts are in the unenviable spot that the Giants were, which is like, do you commit to Daniel Jones long term? Daniel Jones provided half a season of really good quarterback play, started to fall off a bit, but then an injury is covering up if it's a true fall off or just one fluky game, right? He had a couple, like a 5 turnover game in Europe. He had another kind of really mid game against the Steelers. I think it was the Steelers, right? And then popped the Achilles, and now we don't know. But I, and I'm my maybe unintentionally one of the biggest Daniel Jones haters. I would not feel comfortable committing to him, and they're going to because he had some amazing games to start the season when there was no good tape on Daniel Jones in this offense.
Yeah, and they're in damned if you do, damned if you don't category right now, right? Because he's going to be a top five free agent this offseason. There's not a lot of guys. Trey Hendrickson's at the top. Danny Dimes is up there. Braden Smith, another big Colts free agent that's going to be available on that offensive line. And so it's like, if you don't sign him back, what the fuck do? You can't run Riley Leonard back out there. They feel like an obvious candidate for a Tua trade or, sign if he gets cut, or a Kirk Cousins trade. If the Ravens and Lions, there's been rumors swirling after their kind of cold end to the season that they could not be back with their respective teams. I think the Colts basically are just like, hey, first unhappy startable quarterback we're going to go get. And you've also said, like, hey, what if Kyler Murray goes there? Like, that could be a pretty obvious situation and a matchup for a couple of guys. But yeah, it's like, if the Colts are going for a Super Bowl, I don't think they really have a path as of right now because the quarterback is just not going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this Colts team collapse multiple seasons in a row. I think they're kind of delaying the inevitable of we need to rebuild. And unfortunately, with the Sauce trade, you kind of just have to go all in for a couple seasons here.
Exactly. AFC West, Broncos, sure, man. They just keep winning. It's
Just keep
impressive.
winning.
Cortland Sutton's probably the best wide receiver in this division now, which is just kind of wild. Yeah, they just keep winning these kind of last second games, winning ugly. Bo Nix is doing just enough in order to make it happen. You gotta be happy with it, right? Justin Herbert really needs to rest up. He's not going to be playing in Week 18 against the Broncos, which I think is the right choice 100%. They have nothing to play for. Not even
Yes, they do. Get that. Help the Patriots get a week one or a playoff bye. That's what they got to do.
Yeah, Broncos get the one seed, man. It might be one of the worst one seeds we've ever seen, including even like the '04 Falcons and a lot of other teams. The Chiefs fans have been really quiet, which honestly has been kind of funny after all of their talking for the last years. A lot of my friends are really good about it, but I know a lot of other people that I do not care for that are just like spamming their Instagram stories every single time something even slightly good happens. Very happy that they're not chatting anymore. The no playoffs, no Mahomes, maybe no Travis Kelce going forward, and leaving Missouri wombo combo fucking sucks, man. If you're in Kansas City, you're not feeling real great right now. As much as the Lions losing out sucks, I'm also kind of lamenting and loving how much the Chiefs fans have been quiet lately. That's been very fun.
Yeah, I think the one takeaway I have for young receivers in the NFL is watch a bunch of Quentin Johnson tape and understand that your rookie year being bad doesn't mean you have to like you're going to have a bad career because that dude completely turned his image around in 2 seasons.
Yeah, and he finished kind of slow, had some injuries and everything towards the
Those
back
big
end of the
catches
season, but
though.
yeah, he obviously had the big touchdown this past week against the Texans, which was cool. Drafted as wide receiver 81 in ADP. finished as wide receiver 28 in fantasy points per game. That's pretty
Oh,
freaking solid for a guy that,
mhm.
a lot of people were calling a bust. And then Chip Kelly got fired by the Raiders, which was hilarious. And then doubly hilarious, he got signed to be the Northwestern offensive coordinator yesterday at 5:45 a.m. Sure. And it seems like Pete Carroll is definitely going to be next. That entire team seems to just not want to play for him. They very much so quit on their coach. I like the Pete Carroll hire, but like whenever you have guys that are just actively not playing for their coach, you cannot have.
You're
So
you're
he left.
drafting a new quarterback, give a new coach, let him kind of have his input.
NFC side, starting with the NFC East. Honestly, I don't even really want to talk about the NFC East that much. I think this ended up being one of the worst divisions in football. The Eagles continue to win ugly. Jalen Hurts continues to have some second half collapses. I think that they can be a good playoff team. They need Lane Johnson to get healthy and need a couple of other guys to get healthy. But I just am not impressed with the entirety of this division. Honestly, I think the most fun thing was just the Wendell Robinson emergence this
Yeah, I
season.
mean the Eagles team is built to win in December, so that I mean they can absolutely make a push, but I see a lot of other teams that I feel more confident in winning. Like I just any NFC West team that they face, I feel better about the NFC West team, right?
hmm Exactly. So I think, realistically, all three teams that didn't end up making the playoffs here, I think they have a long road back. I don't think the Commanders can even guarantee that they'll be back to last year's playoff level. Giants have a big decision coming up. Do they run back with Jackson Dart, their first round quarterback, but he is often injured and didn't really put a ton on tape this year, or do they go and draft a quarterback in the top five that might be a bit more of a surefire, bona fide elite player, which I think is going to be an interesting decision. And then the Cowboys, they cut Trayvon Diggs this past week, the 2022-2023 Pro Bowler at corner. Now they're going to have some big questions in that secondary. And they've always been a boomer bust kind of secondary and still are going to continue to be with like Deron Bland still being around. But now they're going to be trying to get another lockdown corner. And Trayvon Diggs can also go to a playoff team immediately, which will be a very interesting thing to monitor over the next couple of weeks. NFC North, I think, ended up being as competitive as we thought it was. All four teams are at 500 or above. I just don't think anyone really was picking the Bears to win this division. Finished 11 and 5. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean you got to tip your cap to them. I This team doesn't feel to me like one that can make a push in the playoffs because this defense is pretty bad. They're very, very turnover dependent. You play a good team doesn't turn the ball over. But again, they've turned the ball over against good teams. It's just it's so luck dependent. It feels like a lot of good bounces their way, etc. But they just keep winning games, so they very well could make a push.
Yeah, Caleb Williams is ultimate gamer type of guy. He's really able to make some big plays, including a huge pass to DJ Moore to win a couple of weeks ago against the Packers. That was awesome. But yeah, I think the big thing is can their young players continue to improve, right? And it might be a little bit too early to make a true playoff push. Luther Burden got hurt in the very last play of the game this past week, but he has looked awesome. Really feels like the rest of the league overthought him whenever it came to the draft. And yeah, so they really need things to continue to break their way as we go into the playoffs. Packers, we've talked about, they're limping into the playoffs. Uh, Vikings, this is going to be a strange position that they're going to be put in over this offseason. Aaron Jones clearly is over the cliff and cannot stay healthy. They have a weird situation at quarterback, which I think they really need to get some clarity on. And then Justin Jefferson, man, I mean, he has immediately proved to me, I don't care what the talent level looks like. If you have a bad enough quarterback situation, you cannot be QB proof. Wide receiver two, in terms of ADP, Justin Jefferson was before the season, finishes on a point per game rank, wide receiver 35 this past year. Absolutely brutal.
Yeah, people are going to sleep on him next year. I'm still drafting him because the talent, but um, nine's bad, dude. Nine is
Yeah,
bad.
yeah,
Also, we have
could get.
5 minutes. Let's not worry about the fantasy aspect of it. We can do a full-fledged fantasy recap. Let's really hone in on I guess, the remainder of these divisions here.
Yeah, I don't want anyone thinking I'm trying to dodge the Lions. If you want me to, see all my thoughts, go to our Twitter. Lions, defense was absolutely abysmal from weeks 12 to 16, gave up 459 yards per game, including 31.6 points per game. And the offense was awesome over that same span. Only gave up 8 giveaways throughout the entire time and was still scoring 30.6 points per game on offense prior to the Vikings game, which kind of flipped a couple of those statistics. I'm honestly kind of glad that they lost in hindsight. Not this, that's a lot of coping, obviously, but a fourth place schedule next year,
Pure
a
copium.
top 15 pick is going to be awesome. And I don't think this team is doing anything in the playoffs anyway. I think they're going to get bounced anyway because if you don't have your two starting safeties like they do, Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph, I just don't think they were going anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, huff your copium. This is tough after being a one seed, but I don't think this is the window being shut on the Lions the way people are trying to dance on their grave. I think they can retool and still be fine.
Yeah, we can skip the NFC South because I honestly want to talk about the NFC West some more. And I think I'm going to start with
Let's
the
let's
40
just go here. NFC South is bad.
bad.
The only thing that's crazy is Shuck actually looks pretty good.
Second offensive rookie of the year odds. I honestly, I kind of would love to see it just for the historical aspect of it. The 49ers, though, the 49ers feel like the blueprint for the Lions. You were at the very tippity top, had some brutal losses in the playoffs, including some Super Bowl losses to the Chiefs. You keep getting better, you keep retooling, you keep finding diamonds in the rough in the draft, and just maybe get a little bit of better injury luck. And they're obviously still dealing with some injury bad luck with Nick Bosa and Fred Warner being out. But that feels like the blueprint for the Lions. You can kind of find a comeback despite having a very tough schedule. I'm hoping that the Lions can follow that 49ers
Can we
blueprint.
make the argument here? I guess two sides of the coin. One, the 49ers season is clearly a monkey paw of I just wish that CMC wouldn't get injured this year. Monkey paw curls and everyone else does. But also what is the value of CMC, right? This team can't win games without him, or at least very rarely. If he's on the field, it doesn't matter who else is there. He churns out 150, 200 scrimmage yards and they win games.
Yeah, it's impressive. And he finishes RB1 for the fantasy season. He is probably the most valuable player that's not a quarterback in all of the NFL. Finishes the number one overall fantasy player this year. With the Seahawks that are going to ultimately win this division, they had a huge overtime win against the Rams with a 2-point conversion a couple of
But
weeks ago.
you're writing off the Niners. The Niners play the Seahawks for the division and the one seed next week.
Oh, is that the
That's
tiebreaker?
yeah, that's why it's the big time game.
I've been so bad about keeping up with the tiebreaker scenarios because it's just like I wrote off the Lions and people are like, oh, they're not out mathematically. They's got to win 5 straight games and have all these teams go 0-5. And I've just been so bad about keeping up with it. But yeah, that's going to be a huge one. It's going to really determine some things. And I think the Seahawks more than any team needs that kind of bye. I feel like they need some time to get healthy and kind of get a game plan going. I think they have a long way to go come playoff time. And then the Rams some brutal losses to the Seahawks and then Falcons this past Monday night, which knocked them out of the division. They
Mhm.
look like the best team in all of the NFL, and now they're going to be placing their own division.
A month ago, this is the team you don't want to face. There's the only team that we said we feel confident in their playoff chances, and now it's I don't feel confident at all. You can't lose to the Falcons at home. You
Yeah,
can't
and
do
the
it.
Falcons had some crazy wins this year, right? They beat the Bills, they beat the Rams, they beat the Bucks whenever the Bucks were at
Dude,
their
didn't they
peak.
shut out the Bill? They shut out the Bills.
Yeah, obliterate
It's
them, and then
insane.
they lose the Jets, and it's like, what is this team? I have no freaking clue. James, 60 seconds. Stafford or May for MVP?
I, in my heart, want it to be May. I think there's a lot of really good arguments for May when you kind of look at common opponents, etc. I think Stat Padford's a bit of a, as his nickname implies, stat patter and really non-key games. But then at the same time, like Drake May did just drop 5 tutties on one of the worst Jets teams we've ever seen. I think Stafford ends up getting it. The 40-5 touchdown to end ratio is just so big. But regardless, the Pats should be happy. I don't know if I texted you or who, but it's like this is the best quarterback season for Patriots since 2017 MVP Brady, if you count total yards and total touchdowns, right? Because Brady was all passing, no rushing. Drake with that rushing upside kind of puts him in that conversation of just MVP caliber play. And our quarterback's 23 doing this. It's awesome. If he doesn't win it, who cares? This was such a great season for the Pats, and things are looking up.
I love to see it. Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. All right. I think that's our time.
I
So
think
we'll
so.
see y'all
Bye,
next week.
everybody.